right. Good evening, everybody. We're going to continue with the basic ideas of what's called the heter iska, the permission to do business, and what might appear to be receiving interest on a loan, but actually is an investment and therefore permitted. And so it's not even really a loophole as much as it is the actual law, but done so in a unique manner. So in our first video, we went over the scriptural sources, as well as in the Torah particularly, as well as Rashi, on a few of those verses, and the Rambam, and some other sources. So now we're going to go back to the Gemara in Sanhedrin. It says La'olam. Let me just see. Sanhedrin, right at the beginning, 2b. It says La'olam kasavar erev parshas kasav kan v'dinahu. That whenever there is a combination of two chapters written here, and that's the law, the levoy nami mumchin. You also need experts. But when you don't need experts, Mishum the Rabbi Chanina, that's from what the teaching that was said in the name of Rabbi Chanina. Damar Rabbi Chanina davar dvar Torah echad dinei mamanis ve'echad dinei nefashis v'drisha b'chikira. That whether it's a monetary case or a capital case, a murder case, you need to both seek out and interrogate witnesses in order to understand what exactly is going on. This is both the same in confessions and in loans, whether it's a criminal case or a civil case, or even a civil agreement when cross-examining witnesses. On the next page, the Gemara says, Shne'emar, quotes Leviticus 24:22. Mishpat echad yeh lechem. There should be one law for you, and also for the convert. So what's the reason that it says the laws of financial laws, monetary laws? Why would you think you don't need to cross-examine witnesses in monetary cases? And the reason why you would not want to do that is because you don't want to close the door in front of lenders and borrowers. We want to make it as easy as possible to allow people to lend and borrow money. So Rashi there in the Gemara says, Shalaitin al Delis, if you don't want to close the door, Shiemnu milahalvais, people are going to stop lending and borrowing money. Shema yichbur, because maybe the borrower will deny he ever made the loan, and the witnesses will make a mistake, will err, and their testimony will not be it will not be corroborating. And he'll lose out. He'll lose his investment, his loan. And here too, Shema loy yimsa mumchin l'kayfen l'din. Similarly, you might not find experts to force them into a court case, and that could cause an issue there. All right, the next Rashi there, Ravina Amar. No, I'm sorry, that's the Rashi there. So it's another Gemara. Gemara in Bava Kama, Dav Ches Amud Aleph, 8a. It says like this: Ravina Amar b'de'ula. pligi. Ravina says that it's Ula whose disagreement. The Amar Ula, as Ula says, Dvar Torah, Beis Ches Balechayim. Hold on. Darker Shalom Lighty. Let's just see what Steinsalt's here. Vino Amar. Bar Torah Balchov. I'm sorry. Right. I'm sorry about that. So Ravina said, but the Ula, it's like Ula's Pligid Amar Ula Dvar Torah Balchov Beziburis. That if someone has a debt, he really only has to come back with the cheapest type of material to be returned to him. If he's being, if he pays back, Shna'amar B'chutz Ta'amoid V'Ish Asher T'noisei Bo Yotzei Lecha Sa'avoid Achutza. Deuteronomy 24:11, it says you should stand outside, and the person that, let's just see the verse. B'chutz ta'amod, you must remain outside. And the person who you made the loan to, he has to bring it out to you. He's bringing something else. He's going to bring out his cheapest materials. So why did the sages say that even though the Torah said that you can pay back someone who is a debtor, the debtor can pay back with the cheapest, but he said nonetheless he should really use something that's in between, not too expensive and not too cheap. So people, whoa, that was an owl, I think. So people should not almost hit that owl or whatever type of bird of prey that was. We don't want to close the door because of the people who are that people shouldn't borrow or here's the deer again, borrow or lend money. So now we're back to Rambam, laws of loans and borrowing and lending. 19a, chapter 19, law A. If a person, if the court is seizing the assets of a borrower to collect debt, layigbu leval choiv element of beinus shebakar kaisov. You will only seize the most intermediate of his assets, not its most expensive and not its cheapest, but the intermediate. And in Tereshig b'bal choivin is a boris. However, from the Torah law, it's sufficient to collect from the cheapest assets. Because it says you stand outside, and the person who you're collecting from, he should bring it out to you. And the person naturally would bring out his cheapest materials, his cheapest assets. The sages said that the collection should be from the intermediary assets, because then no one will want to lend money if they think they're only going to get back the cheapest assets if they're collecting real estate or movable items or whatever it is. We're not talking about money necessarily, but medvar mamurim, meaning they're repossessing something to pay the debt. The repo man comes, right? But medvar mamurim, what are we talking about this? It's only if you're collecting from the borrower himself who was negligent. But if the debtor already passed away and now the debt has been passed on to his children, to his heirs, whether they are children or adults, they only have to pay from the cheapest assets. They don't have to give such valuable assets. Alright. Another Gemara here. Actually, Mishnah. In Almana Nifraz and Mishnah Gittin. In Almana Nifraz Mnichse Yisoymin. Al Bashwa'a. A widow. In Torah law, when it comes to the laws of inheritance, a widow does not inherit her late husband's assets. The children are the heirs, specifically the sons are the heirs, unless there are no sons, and in that case the daughters are the heirs. And the widow, it's really the duty of the children to support their mother in such a case. And the mother does not have to support the mother. The mother does not have any claim to the husband's assets, and the way we actually do it today quite often is that the husband makes what's called matna shchivmira, that he makes somewhat of a living will, not what's usually called a living will, but in any event he gives all of his assets to his wife as a gift if he predeceases her, and then he doesn't have any assets, and then later they can make a will otherwise. So there's always ways around different things. But let's say the widow in the regular case where it's not hers, it belongs to her children, the assets, the inheritance. She cannot pay back her late husband's loan from the assets of the orphans of her children unless she makes an oath to clarify that everything is being done properly and legally. People didn't want to swear oaths, though. Especially Jews don't like to swear oaths because it's a very serious thing. If you even mess up a little bit, Hiskin Rabban Gamliel Zaken Shetenu Deres LaYisayimim Kol Mashiyirtzu. So establish that Rabban Gamliel, the elder, that they should take vows, make the orphans take vows, whatever vows they want to make. Goyvik Sabasa. And then they would collect the debt from the alimony of the woman. which she does receive that. The husband owes her that even when he passes away from his estate. And the witnesses sign the document Tikkun Olam to fix the world. This shows Tikkun Olam doesn't mean some left-wing silliness. It means to make sure things are done in the proper way. Hillel Hiskin prozbul Tikkun Olam. And then it says another example of something that's Tikkun Olam, that fixes the world, is the prozbul. What's prozbul? Prozbul is a document that we know when sabbatical year comes around, we have to forgive all the debts. And the prozbul, we only forgive private debts. The prozbul makes it a public debt, and so therefore it doesn't have to be forgiven. And why would that be? Again, it's because people were not. First of all, in the current time, laws of sabbatical, according to most opinions, are rabbinical. So therefore, you're allowed. That's why you're allowed to make the prozbul, because it's within the rabbinical law. Similarly, how you're allowed to make an erev only in a Carmelis, but not in a Rosh Hashanah D'Oraisa. You're allowed to make an erev chatzeres in a place that's a rabbinically enacted public thoroughfare, but not an actual biblical public domain, because you could not override the biblical law. And so too, we say the sabbatical year, when the majority of the Israelites are not in the Holy Land. The sabbatical law is only rabbinical in order to commemorate that, so it doesn't become forgotten. But we can use the subterfuge of making, but therefore the requirement to forgive debts is it's only with private debts, and so when we make a document to make the debts public, we thereby are allowed to collect the debts after the sabbatical year. And the reason for that is, like we said, to make the world better. So Bart Nura here explains Hillel Hiskin prozbul, that Hillel established this document called the prozbul that overrides sabbatical, the requirements to forgive debts at the end of the sabbatical year. Shira Shenimnu Lahalvais Zezeh. And it's a very simple document. In fact, nowadays people, they do it online. It's a simple thing. We saw that people didn't want to give loans, and again, we said before, we don't want to shut the door on people from lending money. And by doing that, they were violating the Torah law. It says, we quoted before, Deuteronomy 15, verse 9. It says, you should be very careful that there shouldn't be any kind of base idea in your heart. Almad Viskin prozbul. So Hillel got up and he established the prozbul. And the wording of the prozbul is of this document is Moisani Lechem Lifnei Lechem Ploni Ploni Dayanim. It's a very simple document that says, I am giving over to you, so and so, the judges of this court. You place it before Bezdin, court of three, that every debt that I have by so and so, that I can collect it any time that I wish. So the Gemara Bava Metzia, Daled with Beis, 104b, says like this. Amr Nehardai, the men of Nardea then said the following: Hi iska, palga milva palga pikadu. What if someone enters into a business arrangement that is half a loan and half a deposit, an investment? Avud Rabbanan Milsa Denichale, Luloiva, Venichale de Malva. The rabbis established this so it should benefit both the borrower and the lender. Hashta Damrina and Palga de Malva, Iboy Mishte Bay, Skara Shafir Dame. Because of the half of the why isn't this working? Because generally you would think that, the one who is, let's say, the lender might want to make 2/3, for example, an investment, and 1/3 a loan, and so forth. So you can get back a larger amount if it's successful. So they said that no, you should do half and half a loan and half an investment. So therefore it's equally beneficial and satisfying for both the borrower and the lender. So the part of the lender, he'll take his profit. That's good for him. Rava says like this: Lahachi karale iska. That's why it's called business. Because you're taking a risk, right? It's business because I'm giving this to you as an investment to do business with it. When someone is making a loan, it's generally the type of loan that there's going to be some kind of benefit out of that. A business loan. He's not shechra. You don't give a loan to someone so you can drink beer, right? Amar Rav Idi Baravin. Rav Idi Baravin said like this: V'meis nasa metaltlin etzel banav. If the borrower passes away, so then his children, they could have from this movable assets. Not real estate assets, but immovable commodities. Rava Amar Lahachi Karule Iska. Rava said, no, this is why it's called business. The Meis Lo Yasa Metaltlin. He said, no, if he dies, he doesn't make this into movable assets, Etzel Banov, by his children. Amar Rava said, Chada Iska Shtari Psida de Milva. If you do a 2/3 type of 2/3 1/3 investment and 2/3 loan, so the loaner is losing out. So that's why they want to make it 50-50, so that both sides should find some satisfaction in this, to make this type of investment in the capital market and it it's designed like this for a very moral reason, to encourage people to be uh, generous. Essentially, it's a form of charity. It's a charitable form. I know in today's world, people who are investments in markets, investors and take risks like this, are looked at uh, from people on the left. They're looked at in a very negative way, in a way that they're not really honest, they're not really moral, ethical. But the truth of the matter is, we see from here that this is ethical, but it should be done in a way that is beneficiary to both sides, and that there is a tremendous ethical requirement from the Jewish faith to make it easier for people to be generous, and especially to give loans so people can support themselves. So that there's nothing that's seen to be unethical or distasteful about making a profit, about doing business, because all of these things, they benefit people. We're not just hoarding money. We're making the world a better place. That's the real tikkun olam. Is not the left-wing nonsense of essentially socialism, communism, but rather the investment, the ethics of investment, the ethics of business that are very good and proper. And so therefore, even though the Torah prohibits loaning on interest to your fellow Jew, it encourages us to make business plans that benefit both the borrower and the lender, that the lender becomes an investor. And he also puts a risk by doing that, because he could lose that part of his investment, but he then won't lose everything. But we'll see later that in order to accomplish this, we need to have people who are willing to sign off that they recognize this person. All right, so now we're going to get to how long is this Shita Mekubetzes. All right, so that's where we're going to hold on to this here. That we have the Shita Mekubetzes, one of the great commentaries on the Talmud. He's going to explain this much more in depth and really clarify all of these things that we've just looked at. So God willing, next time we're going to look at this Shita Mekubetzes and really delve more into this idea of what we call the heter iska, of how we can maneuver this idea of balancing between investing and loaning, and how to do that in a way that's beneficial to both parties in this business arrangement. Sorry if this was maybe a little bit esoteric. But it's actually very, very practical, and so therefore it's worthwhile that we read all of these sources here, and then we'll get back. But again, there's a common denominator here between the idea of the prozbul, which again, some people will feel, they look at that and they're like, look at these Jews, they're violating the Torah by inventing this loophole. But the thing is, they invented the loophole not to violate the Torah, but to prevent people from violating the Torah. Because there's also, Torah says you cannot hold back from giving loans. The Torah encourages us to loan money. That's how we help people. That's how we make society better. And so too here. If the fact that we're not allowed to take interest from a fellow Jew is a stumbling block that prevents a Jew from loaning money, we figure out a way of iska, of saying, well, this is an investment and not a loan. And that will therefore make it, or it's a half investment and half loan. And so that will make it beneficial to both sides. Sorry if I was a little out of it, maybe a little boring, but we'll try to get back into this a little bit later. Again, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. See you later. I'd like to open this up. This sheet just by itself, but alright. Next time, Mitzvah Shem.